Hey everybody, DigiBro here. Welcome to my new studio closet. As you may have seen, I just put out a video about all of the summer season anime that I completed, that I enjoyed all the way through. And at the end, I had a list of all the shows that I dropped from the summer season because I either wasn't invested enough in them to finish or just didn't like them outright. And of course, I kind of should have known this was going to happen because I did drop the 6 most popular shows according to my anime list. But a lot of people were really curious about the shows I dropped and why I dropped them. And I don't really want to do whole in-depth analysis videos with footage about this because these are shows I don't really like or care about. I don't really want to produce an entire video about them. And they're shows that other people like, and I don't really, with very few exceptions for shows that I strongly despise, I don't really like shitting on shows that other people like just because I don't like them. I don't think it's a great crime to produce something that doesn't suit my tastes. When I do talk shit about shows, it's usually because I am passionate about hating them to an extent that it's really fun. Like Sword Art Online, I really love hating that show. But anyways, enough about that. The point is that people were really curious, and I think it's mostly legitimate curiosity. People want to know why I dropped these shows. So I figured I would just give a quick rundown of exactly what reasons I dropped each show. I don't expect you to feel these ways about these shows. This is just how I felt watching the first few episodes usually, like what didn't sit right with me or what I heard about the shows that put me off. So as you may know, I do a lot of research on anime. I do a lot of reading about it. I follow other anime channels, other anime fans on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff. So I see these shows get talked about throughout the season, and I don't usually watch seasonal shows while they're airing. Generally, I fall behind on everything. I start every new show at the start of the season so I can get a sense of what it's like and what I might like later, but I don't usually keep up with anything unless I'm really into it, and even then, probably not. So this season, I just sort of watched the first few episodes of most shows, and then I caught up on everything at the end of the season. So all those shows that I talked about in the last video, I just watched all those in the last week and a half or so. Just blitzed through them all. And anything I dropped was something I tried to do that with, and it just didn't hold my attention. So to start with, we'll talk about some of the popular shows that I didn't manage to make it through. We'll start with the most popular, Charlotte. This is the most watched and talked about show of the season. And most people don't seem to blame me very much for dropping this show because it's kind of been critically panned, which is odd. It's a show that it is very popular, and it doesn't seem like everyone hates it. There's plenty of people who are giving it high scores, who think it's a great show. But if you were to go on my anime list right now and look at the first 4 reviews on the page, they're all 3 out of 10 reviews, all angry people who are very upset with the way the show went. So with Charlotte, I really enjoyed the first episode because the first 15 minutes were really unique and interesting, where the main character, was like this evil, conniving bastard, and it's beautifully put together, it's well directed, it's gorgeously animated, it's got good-looking characters, good-looking world to it. PA Works in general, their work always looks good. I've very rarely seen a PA Works show that I didn't think was gorgeous, but I've often seen ones where I didn't necessarily enjoy the storyline. They did Glass Slip last year, which everyone panned as well. So with Charlotte, though, everyone was bringing up Angel Beats, because that's the last thing that Maeda Jun, the writer of Charlotte, who also wrote Clannad and Canon and Air and all that good stuff, he did Angel Beats with PA Works as their second or third show, and it was pretty popular, but it was also very divisive because it was kind of a clusterfuck, and I liked Angel Beats. I thought that while it was a total clusterfuck, each thing it did was interesting, where it had this weird sense of humor, this weird sense of drama, but all of them, even though it was constantly changing gears all the time and it was like a mess, it was always enjoyable to me. I never felt like it was just straight up bad. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes that I didn't like. But with Charlotte, when when the show was starting, my immediate thought was it's gonna be a clusterfuck. Like when I watched episode 2 and it showed the brother in the hospital and it was super corny. This guy like lost his mind and thrashing stuff because music, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be weird and eccentric. But I was kind of looking forward to that. And that was the last episode I watched. The rest of the season came out, and I started hearing all these things about it. It's my cousin who watched the show detailed in depth to me what happened in episode 7, which does sound hilarious. But the impression I was getting was that no one was really happy with where it was going. People kept making fun of it and saying that I had to watch it so that I could make fun of it and pick it apart. People were like hoping I would rip this show a new one. So I picked it back up, and honestly, episodes 3 and 4 were just so fucking boring. Like, it was really hard to sit through. Episode 3, it felt incompetent to me in the way it was written, where every scene had like nothing to do with the next scene. It starts off with like the daily life stuff with the little sister making the meals for the guy, and it was the same joke that had just been used in the first 2 episodes. She can't cook. Every Jun Maeda home character, there's always a character at home in a Jun Maeda show who can't cook, probably has something really dramatic happen to them. In canon, the girl Nayuki's mom gets hit by a car. Spoiler alert. She doesn't die, but that happens. She couldn't cook. The girl from Clannad's mom couldn't cook. I don't know if anything, the girl from Clannad, so it always happens. She's got this little sister at home, and sure enough, for those of you who've seen the show, know what happens to her. I just don't get it. Like, it's not a character trait. The fact that she can't cook does not make her a character. That's not like a personality. But anyways, so there's all those scenes. There's the guy who runs really fast and he's like a huge dork, I guess. Again, same jokes repeated from the previous episode. He runs too fast to try to get lunch, hurts himself. None of this has to do with the plot of the episode. So then they're like, oh, we have to hunt down a person. We have to find this person with superpowers. So they go out and they're in the streets and nothing's happening. And then they get like ambushed by dudes, and they just kind of conveniently end up where they're supposed to be. Like, I don't understand why the guys who were with them took them there, or why they were complying with anything. They had this attitude like, oh, we don't want you guys around here, but they weren't kicking them out. It was strange. It didn't really make any sense. And then they meet this girl who's like, I guess she's an idol singer, but then she has the soul of her dead sister inside of her who has a different personality, and that's like her thing, and she manipulates fire, and like the way these scenes would play out, they find out that she manipulates fire, right? They knew that rather, and the sister takes over her body and like lights everything on fire, and she's all pissed off. And then they just kind of say something to her, and she calms down and unlights all the fire. What was the point? Why did she outburst? Why did she clean it up? Why anything? Doesn't really make any sense. Nothing fit together. It was like there was a list of things that had to happen in the episode, and so those things happened with no cohesion or flow or like train of logic behind them. And it was boring. So by that point, by the end of episode 3, in my mind, I was already like, this, I can't. Like, if there's another episode like this, I can't do it. And then the next one was like a baseball episode, and it wasn't funny, which is odd, because I know that Jun Maeda can write funny scenes. Like, I know he reuses his jokes throughout each of his shows and stuff, but like, Little Busters had endearing, heartwarming, funny scenes in it, and Angel Beats had some funny, endearing scenes, and all of his shows have had baseball scenes, and all of them have been better than this one. Like, this episode didn't accomplish anything. It was just a fucking baseball episode, and I was really bored throughout all of it, so I put down the show, because, again, even if it does get crazy later, like I've been hearing, I'm not invested. I don't care. I don't care about any of the characters. None of them had any real personality. None of them seemed like interesting people. Everything I'd heard about the story was that it was going to be a clusterfuck, so it's not like I'm waiting with bated breath to see where it's going to go, So I put that one down. So, number 2, Gangsta. And I don't hate Gangsta. I didn't dislike it strongly. I just thought it was kind of a disappointment. by the time I got around, I had seen the first 3 episodes while they were airing, and I did enjoy them a lot, but I felt like the show, my biggest worry was it wasn't going to go anywhere, because I knew it was a continuing manga, and I have a tendency to do this if I know that a manga is ongoing, and I start watching the show, and I know it's only going to have 10 to 12 episodes, and nothing seems to be happening, I have a tendency to just quit, because, like, if they're like, oh, we're going to make a second season, then I might be like, oh, okay, well, I know that it can make progress now because they're making more of it. But, like, if it's just going to be an anime that's trying to sell me the manga, then there's not much point unless it's really enjoyable as an anime. And Gangsta is really well directed. I love the aesthetic of it. I love the city, the design of the city, but it just ended up being characters walking around, just always walking. And the crutch that it always relies on is like all this stuff from the past. It's always like everyone has a history together. No one's fazed by the things that are happening. You know, there's you've sort of got the prostitute girl from the first episode sort of becomes the eyes of the audience character who's, you know, learning about this city for the first time, but everyone else knows everything, and they just constantly reference that they know everything. You know, it'll be like, oh, it's that guy. I've got such a history with that guy, but they don't tell us the history. They will, like, slowly over the course of episodes tell us stuff, but way more of the show is people going, oh man, those dog tags, oh, those 3 rules, oh, those, like, they bring up the 3 rules like 5 times throughout episodes 4 and 5 before they actually explain what the 3 rules are. And then when they do it, it's just a dialogue scene. They just tell you, here's what the 3 rules are. It's like, okay, couldn't you have told me that at the start of episode 4 instead of, like, baiting me constantly with the 3 rules thing, you know? And the animation in the show looks like garbage. It's sad to say, you know, I want to defend it because I like the aesthetic of the show, but the animation looks like shit. And you can't have an action show like that. Like, episode 4 and 5, especially 5, is, like, all fighting, and it just looks like shit. The choreography is not even bad. It's just the way it's animated. Everything looks janky, and there's not enough frames. There's not enough anything. It just looks like shit. And, like, when you watch a fight scene unfolding for, like, 10 minutes and none of it looks good, then it's just, like, ugh, it's cringy. And I'd heard that the show didn't go anywhere. Everyone who watched it to the end said that it was disappointing. It kept introducing new plot threads that it never resolved. And then Manglobe went out of business. So there's probably not going to be another season, sadly. So, you know, it is what it is with that one. Next up, Rokka no Yuusha. This is the one that people seem to be the most, like, egging me on to, like, why did you drop this? You should watch the rest of it. And I get why. I know what the show is, because I've been on the whole time that it's been airing, and people have been talking about how it suddenly becomes this mystery show, and people are interested in that. Well, for starters, I don't like the mystery genre at all. I don't like shows that try to, like, raise a lot of questions and then just have me waiting for answers. I hate that. I hate waiting around to learn the interesting idea. You know, for me, what usually grabs me with a show is the things I do know. Like, when right off the bat I feel connected with a character, or I feel connected with a situation, and then I want to see where it's going to progress from there. You know, I prefer when we learn about things naturally through the story that we didn't expect. You know, I'm thinking of, like, a very traditionally written story like Gurren Lagann, where you have the motivations of the characters and the situation that's driving the action from the beginning. And then, you know, you learn big revelations that change your perspective on everything you've seen before and everything that you'll see going forward. But it wasn't something that, like, maybe it was foreshadowed before, but, like, with mystery shows, I always feel like I'm just waiting around. Like, they say, who could the killer be? And then I go, I guess I'll find out in 6 more episodes. And then once I know, I don't care. So, you know, I don't know that Rokka no Yuusha's like that, but that's just, like, when people tell me it becomes this mystery, this thriller, I'm like, not my genre, so not excited to go watch that. I heard that it's very slowly paced. I heard that it only adapted 1 volume of the light novel, and I just didn't like the first 2 episodes. I couldn't finish episode 2. I don't like the look of the show. I do like the setting. I like that they tried to do this weird Aztec thing. I hate the main character's design. The girl looks okay, but like I'm not into the character designs, not into the look. I hate how it constantly bounces between like hand-drawn and CG and like weird, shitty-looking rendered backgrounds and stuff. There'll be parts in the show where it'll cut from like a gorgeous shot of like a tree on an open field that looks beautiful, and then like the next shot will be like some really totally different looking shot of like the ground, like a horse walking, and like the ground is like a 3D texture that just looks flat and bad, and it's jarring to be taken between those things. You know, there was that fight scene in the first episode that I think a lot of people were really into, but there's like parts where it's just the camera's just spinning around in circles and the characters are fighting and you have no sense of who's standing where, who's doing what. Whenever it does the spinny camera thing in a show, then again it becomes CG textured backgrounds that don't look as good as the hand-drawn ones. Like, that takes me out of it when like I feel like I'm looking at one location and then I'm looking at a totally different location, you know. And there's been shows that did it and it didn't bother me as much. Kill La Kill did that sometimes, but it usually kept its backgrounds like open and sparse in ways that like it could get away with that, or it played up the CG so much that it was like goofy. But with this show, it just felt like it was a jumbled mess. It felt like it was all over the place. And after the big fight scene, the main character and the girl talk for like 10 minutes of just exposition. Nothing but exposition. And then episode 2 starts, and it's another 10 minutes of nothing but exposition. And I fucking bailed right there. And, you know, regardless of where the story goes, I've heard it stays like that. It's always exposition heavy. It's always like that. So, not interested in seeing more of that. So then we have Gate, and I will admit a lot of why I didn't watch Gate is personal bias. I don't like Studio A1 Pictures. Most of their shows, the look of their shows, the feel of them, and the stories rub me the wrong way every time, no matter what. Like, there are a bunch of shows by them I like. Most of them are a lot older, but something about A1 Pictures shows just feels wrong to me, even when they're better. Like, not all of their shows are necessarily like bad shows. It's just like the aesthetic, the way they draw their characters, the way that everything just looks like not cohesive, and it feels like gross to me. I don't know how to put it, but it's almost always that way, no matter what the art style they go for on the individual show is like. So it's odd, and you know, every time I go into an A1 Pictures show, it's sort of like it's defending itself from me. Like, I go into them expecting not to like them, and then when I don't like them right off the bat, then it's like, okay, well, there's another A1 Pictures show I don't like. So, with Gate, I went into it with those expectations, and I'd heard that a lot of people liked the book or the manga, and I started out the first episode, and it was the most awkwardly directed episode of anime I've seen in a long time, where every shot lingers a little too long, the sound effects or the music just don't feel right, like nothing felt right, everything felt oddly timed, everything that was happening, like the main character would have like 2 lines of dialogue in between, like just walking on a subway or playing a video game. I don't care. And then like demons show up and people just start dying. And I mean, it was cool that the guy like fought the monsters and killed them. And I was like, all right, that's pretty nice. But like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, there'd be like, I'd lose sense of where he was in the city because it kept cutting to different places constantly. It'd be like, here's the guy, now here's some completely unrelated people getting killed by demons somewhere. And then the sense of space, the sense of where is this happening in relation to this is all just a clusterfuck. And that drives me crazy. That's the kind of stuff I can't stand in shows. I really like when there's a lot of visual flow, a lot of visual cohesion between what's happening, when I can tell like how everything in the situation relates to each other. This just felt like madness. It was just shit happening everywhere, and I really didn't care about it. And the guy seemed like just the stereotypical otaku main character who just happens to also be a military guy, I guess. But, you know, I saw Outbreak Company for 2 episodes. I couldn't take that kid either, and he at least had more personality. So like, and it had that whole like light novel feel where it's like there's gonna be 4 girls who each have a different hairstyle or hair color, and each one's a different type of magical being in the classical magical world thing, and the elf's gonna act like an elf, the demon's gonna act like a demon girl, like it's like you could see the future unfolding before my eyes. And again, maybe it's not like that, but that's the vibe I had. And, immediately people were saying it wasn't as good as the manga, it wasn't as good as the book. People were complaining about the adaptation. Once it reached the end, people were saying that it had gone downhill, that it, turned into like dumb otaku joke stuff. And so again, not a lot of incentive to go back. Overlord is the next show. I just got really bored watching this. Like, I watched all the first episode and most of the second episode, and the second episode was entirely the dude and his generals standing in a place talking, and I did not like any of the characters. The second in command girl is obnoxious. All she talks, she wants his dick. That's her character. That's her personality. She wants his dick. And then there's the goth lolly, also wants his dick. The 2 little kids, they don't want his dick, but they want his love. All of them just love the guy. All they do is just blow him off the whole show. That's all they do. They stand around and they talk about how fucking cool he is and blow him off. And that was the whole episode. It was 20 minutes of everyone blowing this dude off. And they didn't even do anything. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't accomplish anything. They just stood around. It was super boring. The animation was and directing was very lifeless. It was very like Madhouse cheap adaptation, where like it has the Madhouse look to it. Like the characters are drawn very well, but nothing's really happening, and there's no feeling to the shots or the choreography of motion or anything. It was just boring. I got really bored, and my friend Cider of the Pub Crawl, which is a radio show I do, was like, he had seen the first episode of the show and then immediately read like 10 volumes of the light novel, and he told me that it just became like super Deus Ex Machina-y, like he would just pull shit out of his ass to win all the battles and stuff, and like, he was really unhappy with it, and he has lower standards than I do, so like it just didn't sound like my thing. I would rather go back and watch Log Horizon again, or read Log Horizon, or get more Log Horizon, if I want to watch an MMO anime. God Eater was, I don't think as many people are complaining that I dropped this, but it was one of the popular shows though that I dropped. It's boring. It's just really boring. I don't care about anything. I watched the first episode and like, it just seemed like the most generic video game show thing, which there's a tendency with these video game shows where it's always like stoic lead, huge weapon, big fights with lots of enemies and lots of big weapons. I don't like the big weapon look. I think they look dumb. The fights weren't really interestingly choreographed, and I don't really like the way the animation looks. The weird like CG blended animation just looked awkward to me. And there was a lot of shots where like the characters were off model and just kind of ugly, and yeah, it didn't look good. And I felt like that was what it was trying to do. I felt like it was like the basis of watching the show was that it looked good, but it didn't really look good, so wasn't really feeling it. Monster Musume was another one I didn't dislike. I just wasn't really engaged with it. I don't hate harem comedies like inherently. I think they can be fun and funny, but they really have to be like, either I have to really like one or more of the characters and like really like be like, oh, it's my waifu, or it has to be legitimately funny or like have some progress in the characters or something. And Monster Musume was like, he's obviously never going to fuck any of them because like the law prohibits him. So it's always going to be, they want his dick and he can't give it to them. That's always going to be the plot. That's always going to be the joke. And it's not that funny of a joke to me. I would much rather watch a show with like healthy sexual relationships in it, which Monster Musume, the comics, the original comics, not the manga that the anime is based on, but the older My Life with the Monster Girl comics, which was like it was a series of one-page comics about a bunch of identical brothers, each of whom is dating a monster girl, and it was just like little one-page comics that would tell you some interesting biological fact about the monster girl, usually in some kind of sexual context. And they actually did have sex, but it was like a really adorable comic strip. It wasn't like really sexualized or to the extent the anime is or the manga is. It wasn't like a fan service thing so much as it was just like an interesting fun fact about having sex with monster girls type thing. And it was adorable, and I thought that those pages alone had way more character and were way more fun than anything I got out of the manga or anime of Monster Musume. For a fan service show, it's not that hot. It's not that racy. For a comedy show, it's not very funny. And for a waifu show, the main appeal of the girls is that they're monsters. Like, their personalities aren't really interesting. Like, my favorites would probably be like Pappy and Sue, more for the fact that they're friends than for any other reason, because it's fun to watch them like hanging out together. But both of them are just dumb. Like, their brains are like 2-year-olds. It's just kind of a dumb show. And like, if I'm gonna watch a fan service comedy, I might as well watch one that's funnier or has more fan service or has more attractive characters. All right, Himouto Umaru-chan. I don't think this show's unfunny. I think it had some funny bits, and I thought it was okay, but I can't put up with watching her get her way. It drives me crazy. This girl is a fucking brat. All she does is fucking whine until she gets her way, and she always does. And, like, the show will literally show you her brother, like, coming home from this long work day at this soul-sapping job, probably just took like a 2-hour commute to get home, and he comes home and his fucking sister sitting on his bed going, buy me Jump, and then he goes and buys her Jump because she's manipulative. And I'm like, I can't, this is a level of suffering I can't endure. Like, I can't deal with this. Just felt so sorry for the guy. No one really asked me about Aoharu X Kikanjuu, but it just kind of seemed really cheesy and boring by episode 2, so I dropped it. Dragon Ball Super, I can't watch the Japanese voices. I can't handle the, like, old lady voices for so many of the main characters. I mean, I know they're classics. I know that they probably would have matched great to Goku in 1983 in original Dragon Ball, but I can't deal with it. And I grew up with the dub, and like, I was never a big Dragon Ball fan, so there's never been like a real need for me to watch the new Dragon Ball. So I was kind of like, maybe I'll watch it when it's dubbed, but then I was also like, I probably won't really get around to watching it unless I like binge the entire Dragon Ball canon someday. And, people were posting all those screen caps of all, like, the janky animation stuff, and I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It would be great if they had actually brought it back, like, as a flagship franchise that it is, and, like, made this beautifully animated, like, do a Gundam Unicorn or any Gundam now. Like, all the Gundam shows these days, like, they treat it like it's a big deal, and they make it, like, super beautiful, and, like, why couldn't they do that with Dragon Ball? Because Toei. Ranpo Kitan, again, mystery is not my genre. I watched the first episode of this and I was like, this is not going to be for me. Nothing about it clicked with me at all. I could just tell it wasn't going to be my thing, and I haven't really heard anything to sway me towards watching it. I don't think anyone's questioning that I dropped Chaos Dragon or Okusama ga Seitokaichou, though that's another one that, like, was a fan service thing that I didn't really appreciate, but then I found out it was originally a straight up H manga called Okusama wa Seitokaichou, which is the exact same story except they actually have sex, and it's a lot better. Joukamichi no Dandelion, I don't think anybody watched this, but it was just kind of generic. The plot was insane. Like, the idea of the story was insane, and I thought, like, that might carry the show, but, like, the actual comedy was mostly pretty standard, and it didn't really make me laugh. Classroom Crisis was one I was curious about, because I watched the first episode, and I just didn't understand what the fuck was going on until the very end. And I was like, okay, I guess that could be interesting. I'll wait till someone tells me about it. And everyone I knew who was watching it seemed to be disappointed by the end, so I figured I'd give it a skip. Non Biyori I don't understand, but maybe one day I will. I think that's all the shows that people were weirded out that I dropped, so that's why I dropped them. Those are the specific reasons. Again, I don't expect you to necessarily feel these things or to agree with me. It's just people wanted to know my logic. Why did I drop everybody's favorite shows? Those are my reasons. If you think they're all bullshit and you think I'm an idiot, then that's fine. The shows I did like, I had reasons to like. And it's not a genre thing either. It's something I want to stress that, like, it just happened that all the shows I liked this season were, like, slice of life or comedy shows, because I like every genre of anime. And if you look at my favorites, in fact, my top 5 are, like, all different genres. It's just a matter that I didn't like the shows that were the plot-heavy and action-heavy shows this season. Like, they just didn't do it for me. Obviously, I enjoyed Do-Da-Da-Da, which is sort of a plot-heavy action show, though it's one no one understands. It's just a fun watch, and I'm invested in it. But, like, there's like, if I had to pick, like, my favorite genre right now, or the shows, the ones that interest me the most are usually, like, sci-fi, cyberpunk shows, stuff like Ghost in the Shell and Log Horizon and Psycho-Pass. Like, I love those types of shows. It's just that we didn't get a show like that I liked. And to me, like, having a plot doesn't make a show better. Having a good plot or good characters or something I care about makes a show better. So, like, the fact that Rokka no Yuusha has an actual plot that actually has, like, some intrigue to it doesn't make up for the fact that I don't care about any of the characters or the setting or the visuals or anything else about it or the dialogue. Like, it would have had to sell me on something to make the plot work for me. And another show I'll bring up just because why not? Ore Monogatari. Everyone loved this show, and I held off on watching it till it was over. I got 5 episodes in, and I think it's a good show, but it didn't get to me because, like, the characters were just, like, 2 perfect people who are perfect for each other. Get a room. That was all I could think throughout the episodes I watched was, oh, good for you. Get a room. Jesus. Like, why am I watching this? Why am I watching these 2 just, like, be in love with each other on screen? I guess if you're into that, maybe it's sweet. I'm a lot more into, like, Danna ga Nani, which is one of my favorite shows from this year. I can't understand what my husband is saying, because, like, it's 2 characters who are great for each other and who work well together, but it's, like, through all their flaws, where they're both kind of, one's like a smoking, drinking woman with no idea where she's going in her life, and a guy who's an otaku with barely holding a job, and, like, they just kind of, they're a lot more, like, interesting adult flawed characters, whereas, like, Takeo is just the best guy. That's his personality. He's the best guy. He's nice to everyone to a fault. But not a fault that's explored in the story. There's a moment in episode 4 when Takeo is in the burning building and he saves the friends, and the girl is, like, crying and everything, and he gets out, he escapes. And I thought, this is the perfect opportunity for her to get mad at him for putting his life on the line, for putting himself in danger, for not being there for her, for trying to, for any number of reasons. But she isn't. She's not mad. He comes out of the fire, and she hugs him, and she's so glad that he's safe, and she thinks he's even cooler than before. And I thought, where's the drama? Where's the, like, I get it, they're perfect, all right, I know there's supposedly some more relationship drama later in the series from what I've heard, but, like, I watched episode 5, and they introduced the one dude's sister, and she just seemed like a throwaway character, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'll leave this one to other people. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understand some of where I'm coming from now, why I feel the way I do. Catch you later.